It's time to bring the fight to hell. Here's your look at the McFarlane toys. This is the Doom Slayer. The Doom Slayer has been the main protagonist for most of the series, and a playable character in the Doom franchise and in the upcoming Doom Eternal. His origin is intentionally vague, but he wears his iconic green Space Marine armor and slaughters through countless demons and monsters on his perpetual war against Hell. Before we get a closer look at the Doom Slayer, the first thing that I would like to provide you guys some necessary 411s on just how tall the figure actually stands. While I'm about to grab those calculations for you, I'd also like to send out a big thank you to the folks over at McFarlane Toys, who are very nice enough to provide the sample that we're having a look at in this review. Those interested in picking this one up and adding it to your collection, I certainly don't blame you. If you are curious as to how tall the figure stands, the answer to that question is 7.3 inches in height. And that in centimeters works out to be 18.6, so a little over 18.5 centimeters tall. Next, let's have a look at the accessories that come included with the figure. He gets himself a circular base done in black plastic with one standalone peg. The figure on the underside of its feet will actually have two supporting peg holes, but you can choose which one you want to use for the stand. You have the iconic Doom font down below, and if the base seems rather familiar, it is in fact actually the same stand that they've used and produced for the DC Multiverse line. Other than the fact that the stand for Doom is more of a reflective plastic versus the more matte plastic for the Doom Multiverse, it is exactly the same stand. Other than, again, you've got the different fonts down below. I like the fact that they're consistent in the sense that each of the bases for their respected lines have their own corresponding logo. Really nice touch for that. Next we'll have a look at is his preferred weapon of choice, the Super Shotgun. I know we did get ourselves a 1-to-1 scale Lucille from The Walking Dead from also McFarlane Toys. Could you imagine getting a 1-to-1 scale of the Super Shotgun? I know, again, we have to tread a little lightly when it comes to firearms, and anything closer to looking like the real thing would probably be a no-no. But the very thought of idea in McFarlane Toys actually producing a 1-to-1 scale replica of the Super Shotgun would be a fantastic piece to add to the collection. It's all been done here in what looks to be more of a gunmetal silver plastic, with the taped off section of the handle done in black paint. And you can see the undercarriage there done in brown, with the blades on the underside done in an exquisite metallic gold. The shotgun can actually be housed in either one of the Slayer's hands, so they just attach it like so. And I actually find it's easier if you put it in on an angle, just like that, and then twist into it. And actually, if you can line it up perfectly, you can get the actual finger to fit around the trigger. And you can actually pull that effect off on both sides. So I really do like that. The other accessory he does come included with is his little arm blade. The arm blade is a continuation from his gauntlet, which we will look at as I attach this in place. And you can see the rigid nature of the metallic. Again, it's sort of the same coloring as the Super Shotgun. This really nice dark gunmetal silver. Really like the look of that. It does attach, as you can see, by one peg. There's the peg right there. And if you look to the side of the gauntlet there, you'll see very much a noticeable open area. That is, in fact, the exact same area where you're going to want to attach the gauntlet blade. I like that it's removable and it doesn't have to be there. So if you decide you want to have it more retracted, you can do that. Or if you want to add it in place, like I said, you just attach it like so. And that's what it looks like. Technically, the Doom Slayer also has one other accessory that's sort of been hiding and concealed this entire time. If you flip him around onto the back there, he does also have the cannon. The cannon itself does have, the shoulder-mounted cannon does have articulation to it. So if you aren't using it, you can kind of just tuck it down to the back like so. Or if you want to have it extended, just rotate it around like so, and then you can have it sitting right above its shoulder, just like that. It does have its own independent articulation. If we just hinge that up like that, it does swivel back and forth. It seems like it's actually on a ball joint. That's good. This also has a hinge joint, and then at the top, it does have its own independent ball joint. It sits a little on the loose side. I might have helped it along its way by the fact I was moving it back and forth so frequently, but it still stays in place. It's not going to be going anywhere. Personally, I kind of like the idea of actually having it tucked behind, but it's entirely up to you exactly how about you want to go about that. I'm just going to go ahead and take the Super Shotgun out of his hand. Don't worry, it's going to be in the near area, just in case, of course, hell breaks loose. We're going to go ahead and unpeg the blade. We're just going to put that also to the side. And I guess maybe we'll do some best efforts to move this also out of the way, just so we can get a good close-up look at the Doom Slayer. What a fantastic looking figure. A combination of some really neat, interesting paint applications. The greens, the sort of metallic, it's not even quite brown even. It almost looks like it started at brown and then simply was brushed over top of it by silver. It's a really neat two-tone effect. But I guess the best place to start, as most places seem to be started on these reviews, is with the head portrait. The head portrait is more or less concealed here by a domed helmet, which, I don't know if you can see it or not, is not removable. Underneath that is actually a single length peg, which actually attaches to the interior there by a ball joint. If you move the head too far up, like that, you sort of see how the peg works, and it looks very vacant and empty right here. So I would say if you are looking to move the head up, you sort of maybe want to move it up in a way that is concealing it as best as you possibly can. If you move it up like this, obviously you're going to see a very open kind of cavity where a head should belong. I probably would just say move it up slightly, just kind of like that. The head does move back and forth quite freely, but it is a bit disappointing, unfortunately, that you can't move the head too far up, just because, again, you're going to see very much a visible empty area where a head should technically belong. As for the rest of the body, it's sort of a hammered out, forged out armor that looks rough, as it's certainly been through the trenches and dealing with as much as it has over the years that the Doom Slayer's been battling anything that's been coming through. And really, it's a neat looking armor. It's been painted exquisitely well also as well. And like really, again, I like the greens, the browns. There's like almost a bit of this caramel color in their center section, sort of where his abdomen plates come into play. But mostly he's a more muddier sort of complexion figure. He doesn't have a lot of bright colors to him. I wouldn't certainly expect a character like Doomslayer to really have bright, standing out, popping colors. Obviously, if he's been fighting over the years, his armor would be tattered, worn out, and really looking aged, and I think it does carry well here on the paint application. I have close-up looks here. You can see like the gauntlets there, for example, on his arms. Just really neat. It kind of has this old world look to it, like it's been rusted, and he still continues to wear it. The same can also be applied for the boots here. Again, you've got these really heavy, bulky, textured points that they've managed to sculpt into the leg. He feels sort of in the limited side when it comes to his articulation, and I'll eventually get a little bit more into that. But overall, just from a standpoint of sculpt and paint, I couldn't be any bit more happier with this guy. Like I said, for his articulation, it gets a little limited. We've already talked about his head portrait, the helmet itself. Of course, you can see that noticeable peg. As for the rest of his articulation, though, his arms only hinge out at what seems to be about a 45-degree angle. I tried my best to get a little higher than that, and it seemed to really be resistant to that. So I'm thinking I'm probably just going to leave it and not get any further up from that. One good thing about it is the shoulder sections here. The shoulder plates that sit on top of his arms are actually independently ball jointed. So if you do manage to get the arms a little bit more out, or certainly if you want to move the arm further forward, then at least you can move the shoulder plate out of the way and then just kind of bring it back when you decide where you want to have the arm sit. And both arms, or both shoulder sections, are attached through that same ball joint system. The upper torso is on a ball joint, and a very generous amount of articulation when it comes to the lower section here. You can really do a whole lot of movement forward and back, kind of getting in a neat crunching pose if you want to display him with his super shotgun. The legs split out, not quite at a full splits, mind you, but a good moderate amount of splits. You're never likely going to be displaying your figure like this anyways. Legs go forward and back Again, slightly restricted, more so due to the sculpting that they've, I mean, for its positive ends of things, I mean, get a gander at how much intricate details that they put into this piece. But sort of along with that comes the hardship in the fact that you can't move the legs any bit further than that. I mean, again, would you display Doomslayer with his legs sticking out than like this? I wouldn't. But again, for the sake of this review, I just want to show you guys how far forward and how far back the leg can actually go. At the very least, you could probably have him in a walking pose if you want to have him firing off a few rounds from the Super Shotgun. You could certainly pull that off by the fact that he does have the peg holes on the undersides of his feet. The figure also has a hinge at the a single hinge in the knee. It almost for a second looked like he had a double hinge in the knee, but that's as far back as I can get. It's just a really wide bend. As then for the feet have a very slight ankle pivot, and you can move them back, forward, and back, but there's not a lot that you can really move. There's not a lot of generous articulation when it comes to the feet. You can't rock them back and forth. I kind of would have hoped that the feet could have brought forward a little bit more, just to aid in the fact if you want to have them more in a walking pose. Again, what you're able to pull off by use of the display stand. The only part that kind of disappoints me on this particular figure for its articulation is really the elbows. That's as far as you're able to bend the arm. For the fact that you want to be displaying him, I would have loved to be able to put the gun into his hand. I'll do this right now for you guys. There we go. Just make sure he's got it. I would have loved to actually been able to have the gun further up, maybe more closer resting to his bicep. But because he only can accomplish a single hinge on the elbow, that's as far up as the arm actually will be able to go. I kind of wish it could have been a double hinge joint there. Other than that, though, I'm really happy with how this figure turned out. He's well detailed. He's well. He's not the brightest of figures. I don't mean that intellectually, but he certainly is not one of the brightest figures from a paint standpoint. He sort of keeps his colors in a more muddier, leveled area of like dark greens, like the muddier, more metallic browns and the golds that we had to look at on this figure. But the whole neat aspect of this particular figure is the fact that he's super detailed. He's a little limited when it comes to his posability, but the trade-off instead of that is the fact that you get yourself a really cool sculpted release of the Doomslayer. A character I've really always wanted to have in a figure, now delivered here from the folks over at McFarlane Toys. Now, if somebody was to ask me to best describe my experience in high school and what I did with my friends when I wasn't in class, I could probably best sum it up by saying this. Pizza, horror films, sci-fi films that generally somehow had still gore in it, playing Doom or watching somebody else playing Doom, playing Mortal Kombat 2, generally I was Kun Lao, Soundgarden, Stone Temple Pilots. That pretty much sums it up right there. The thing about it, though, is there's certain games that bring nostalgia to mind when you think about them. Doom is certainly one of those certain instances. Though I don't picture the Doomslayer back then, I would have never pictured the Doomslayer looking like this. His look, of course, has progressed over the subsequent sequels of games over the years. It's really neat the fact that we get ourselves a Doomslayer from the folks over at McFarlane Toys. He's a good, big, clunky, bulky figure, which is exactly the type of figure you would want for a Doomslayer. It sort of does limit his posability in some places. Like the feet, for example, I kind of wish could have hinged a little bit more, and most definitely could have afforded a double hinge in the elbow. But I really like the sculpting that they put into this piece, and he's got that good war-trenched, muddy look to the paint application. There's nothing bright and pristine about this guy. Everything about him is like more earth tones, the greens, the browns, and that really nice hint of silver that they put over top of the brown really does round out this figure quite nicely. The added bonus is the fact that he gets himself the Super Shotgun, the blade, which I didn't put on his gauntlet right now for final looks, and he also does have the shoulder-mounted cannon. It's not really much more I would have asked for this figure. A really nice release from the folks over at McFarlane Toys. Did you guys manage to pick up this one for yourself? I certainly love reading your comments down below. Let me know what you guys think of the Doomslayer. I'd also like to send out a big thank you to the folks over at McFarlane Toys who were nice enough to send this and a couple other pieces my way that we're going to be having a look at some future videos. Also, if you guys are new to this channel, liking this guy's content, liking the fact that I liked Stone Temple Pilots in high school and want to check out more of this guy's content, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below and turn on the bell notification so that when future videos are coming up, you'll be given that friendly little reminder. And stay tuned, members of the mob. There's going to be a whole bunch of McFarlane reviews lined up, slated, and ready to go. Keep your peepers peeled because they're going to be coming soon. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.